Welcome everybody, hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another exciting review here on the channel. Today we're taking a look at a ScaleTrains ES44AC painted for CitiRail but patched over for the Canadian National Railway. This is the first time ScaleTrains has offered these, and these just delivered in July of 2025, so let's go ahead and take a look. Before we do so, do me a favor and subscribe if you haven't already. It's completely free and helps me to make a couple dollars, so really appreciate it. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if you have any questions or just want to chat. Love talking with you. But let's go ahead and get started. I'll give you a quick overview of the box. Of course, we have the product page there. We got ES44 labeled on the side there. Nothing else really on the other sides. However, we do have a bunch of history here and some features, which I'll try to show you as best I can here. These units are accurate for around 2022 onwards, once Canadian National started buying the ES44 leasers that they had for quite some time. This unit in particular was ex-CitiRail 1207, I believe. Pretty standard box. We have the product manual here. No full detail list of all of the parts. However, here is a quick look at the function chart that we'll take a look at as well. There's a couple things that are switched around, but I will cover that as well, just for reference for you. Standard nice foam here, no little secret pocket. We do have the model presented in the standard blister packaging. Very nice foam, should protect it. We do have some extra rotating bearing caps. Only 2 this time, sometimes you get 3 or 4. Nice plastic on the top. Sometimes these truck immobilizers will also come with it. I went ahead and removed our handrail foam off camera just to save us some time. Here's a quick 360. This run of ES44s was originally announced in November of 2024 and just delivered this month in July of 2025. The first time ScaleTrains has done these patched units for CN/CitiRail. This model was purchased from Lombard Hobbies for $330, so we did see a little bit of a price increase due to tariffs, which is a bit unfortunate, but however, it is here. This run also includes another batch of the CSX Heritage units, so if you're waiting for one of those to arrive, most of them are here. There's a few that were delayed. I talked about that in my newsletter recaps if you'd like to check those out as well, where we go through all of the updates for models in the community. But let's go ahead and get back to this model and talk about all the details. We'll go ahead and start off at the front. I'll skip through some of the details since we've seen ES44s before, but I'll just highlight most of the things interesting on this unit. All of the lights are LED. That includes the number boards, headlights, and the ditch lights. One thing that Canadian National has not yet added is the separate red ditch light to denote when the locomotive's moving in reverse. That's one of my favorite features on CN locomotives, so it hasn't made its way yet to these ex-leaser locomotives, however. You can get a pretty decent shot into the cab here through the front windows, all of this orange plastic detail. The side windows are tinted, so it's a little bit more difficult to see. All of the extra grab irons across the nose and the rest of the model here are all separately applied metal pieces, while all the handrails are plastic on this model. We do have metal couplers, silver-tipped MU cables around the plow there with some more grab irons, and the train line hoses on the right side of your screen down at the bottom. Moving to the front conductor side of the unit, just an issue I want to call out before I forget. The front handrails were quite bent when my unit arrived. I've done my best to get them a little bit more straight. The middle stanchions here are fairly straight up and down. However, this handrail here going up the stepwell is still quite a bit curved, but it was nearly touching this inner grab iron when I got the unit. So I've done my best to fix that up as best I can. We'll still be doing a little bit more. Just one of the flaws of plastic handrails. They still look nice, but haven't made the switch over to metal handrails quite yet in all the models. On a positive note though, the CN patched number here looks pretty good, fairly accurate to what it is in real life. There's an ES44AC designation down below, hasn't yet been patched over to what CN calls these units. That's what the CitiRail and GE call this model designation. Like I mentioned, tinted windows on the side, sunshades and wind deflectors around the cab as well. And we'll talk about the trucks in just a sec as well, but rotating bearing caps and all of the exposed axles, pretty standard ScaleTrains feature and very nice to have in this model. Zooming back out to see the rest of the conductor side of the unit, there's not a ton of danger markings or warning labels beyond those right here around the inverter cabinet. We do have the fuel fill valve here in red in the center. Looks pretty neat. Main thing to pay attention to is this bright yellow railing and the CitiRail patch job in the center here. There is a tiny little blue dot that is a engine hood door latch that remains blue and is accurate per the prototype. Little neat feature that was included on this unit. Everything in the back here as well, all of these grates are separately applied pieces. They are see-through. You can see through to the weights underneath the radiator section, as well as the brake wheel here in back. Moving to the back, and before I forget, there is also a brake chain here. It's 2 pieces on the side. That's all plastic. On the back, though, we do have the same headlight package as the front, with these patched over numbers on the side, with similarly non-glossy paint on the glossy metallic finish. Ditch lights once again without that Canadian red light, ScaleTrains metal coupler, and 2 spare knuckle holders on both sides with some more silver tip cables all through the middle. Onto the engineer's rear side of the unit, the only other cosmetic flaw I have is that this very top separately applied step is sort of dented in the middle there. It's very fragile, and I'm probably going to have to take it out in order to bend it back into place, but that's the only other flaw that I've seen on this unit. It's still attached, no worries there. It's not super noticeable unless you look for that specifically. The rear handrails, once again, were just a little bit bent in, but I was able to straighten them out. They are almost perfectly straight all the way across now, so no damage done there. I do have a couple black marks on this yellow stripe here that you might be able to pick up on camera. Not sure what happened there, but it's not perfect. It's not a big detail or deal to me, but just something else to point out. Moving down the rest of the engineer side, pretty much the same details, except the lack of the blue latch here on the patch job. They did do it correctly, and that is prototypically accurate. We have some nice diagrams here, actually, on the fuel and air pump system here in the corner. Pretty much same levels of detail down below. We also have an LED walkway light here right at this step, and some battery box door covers in the walkway. The walkway is treaded but not see-through like the Canadian National style, since it was built for CitiRail. Once again, we have the patch job. We also have a mirror here for the engineer on the side as well. The builder's plate is just at the start of this striping in front. There's a quick look at the other side of the handrails. Better than it was, but still not quite perfect, so I'll be working on that in the meantime. Moving to the top of the unit, lots of gray up here, but we do have a couple exceptions in the PTC dome array up at the front here. A couple warning labels here over the dynamic brake cabinets. Here's our horn and the exhaust stack. In the rear, we have the radiator section with 2 fans you can see. All of this grating on top is separately applied metal pieces. It does feel like this section right here isn't super firmly attached for whatever reason, so I'm being careful with that. It does seem like there's a little bit of excess glue right in this location, but I'll keep an eye on it. Hasn't been an issue so far, but just something to note on this model. And moving on to the underside of the unit, you can see all of this piping detail and some sanding lines here as well. We also have the rust-colored wheels on ScaleTrains units moving forwards. You can see on this front axle, we have 1 exposed rotating bearing cap and the other 2 are covered. It's reversed and the same as this one on the rear trucks. Moving on down, there's our air tank detail around the fuel tank. And on the rear, similar story as the conductor's side front with 3 exposed bearing caps. And here's a quick look at the rear steps. You can see they're perforated, very nice detail there. And all of that excess plumbing. But let's go ahead and get this on the test track and show you the DCC and sound functions. All right, well, come on over to the test track. Still carpet for now, moving soon, so hopefully I'll have a more permanent setup coming our way. Here's a quick reminder of the DCC and sound functions for reference that we'll take a look at here today. We got a couple to switch around that I'll talk about in a second as well. The only programming changes I've done to this unit is change the address from the default of 03 to 2754, our road number, and change CV29 to 42, just my personal preference, turning off DC mode and using the 4-digit address. I'll go ahead and use function 8 to start up the locomotive. Pay attention to the ground lights, walkway lights, and number boards that come on with that. It is a fairly quiet startup compared to ScaleTrains' other locomotives. It almost sounds like a little bit of white noise as well. So I'm not sure if that's just something that'll go away or if it's part of the speaker itself. In any case, you'll hear the air let off going on as well as the air compressor sometimes. That is something that runs while it's on idle and moving. We'll go ahead and get started though. Function 0 is our directional headlight. There's that air compressor going on. As well as our ditch lights on function 6. The horn and bell on functions 1 and 2 are fairly normal ScaleTrains volume-wise, so I'll go ahead and hit that when our air compressor is done. I'll probably go ahead and cut that out just to save some time me talking over it in the future. Here's function 1. That'll go as long as you have that down. Here's function 2, the horn. Hear the bell come on with that. That's also depends on how long you press it. The ditch lights do not flash with the horn. Function 3 is actually where we have a difference from the manual that I've seen on a few locomotives actually. So function 3 says it should be the coupler clank. That's actually function 21. And function 3 is actually our handbrake set. So I'll play that for you. That plays the same length, press it and release it no matter what. Function 4 are our dynamic brakes. We'll take a look at that when we're moving. Function 5 is our DPU lights, so if I press that while I'm in the forward configuration, that'll go ahead and just turn on the rear headlight. If I flip to reverse right now, you can hear the Johnson bar as well as the front headlight coming on. So I flip back and then toggle F5 off. We get our front ditch lights and headlight back on. Function 6 are our ditch lights, which we got on. Function 7 has no function. Function 8 starts us up and shuts us down. F9 is the drive hold, keeps your locomotive moving at the same speed, and you can notch up and down with the throttle instead. Function 10 are the independent brakes. Which play that sound when you release the function 10 button. Function 11 is our radiator fan, which doesn't come on while we're idle here. Function 12 dims the headlights, so that'll turn off our ditch lights and dim the headlights. Toggle that back off to bring those back up. Function 13 is our air dryer. 14 has no function. 15 is the isolation switch, which makes that little click noise, which disconnects the motor drive while we're active. Function 16 has no function. Function 17 is our auto brake set and release, which doesn't have a sound function tied to it. Function 18 is our sanding valve. That plays for the same amount of time regardless. F19 is our short air let-off. So just a little bit of a longer sound than our compressor. F20 manually toggles on that compressor here. That I can turn off prematurely. Function 21 is our coupler clank. It's labeled as the handbrake, but those are switched, remember. I did actually like it being on function 3 because I felt like I used it a lot more than the handbrake, but here is that function 21, the coupler clank. That is two different sounds for you. Function 22 is our cab door. And the closing. Function 23 are the engine hood doors. And they're closing. Function 24 is the reverser center. That does lock your throttle controls while that's on. Function 25 is our cooling shutters. Only a sound when those are toggled on. 26 and 27 is our manual notching up and down, so I'll go ahead and go through that. So here's 26 going up to notch 8, and then 27 notching back down. And a quick note on this model, you do have to have function 28 toggled on in order to use that up and down manual notching. That's a change from prior releases that I've seen with these locomotives where you didn't have to have that toggled on. You can go ahead and use 27 and 28 without 28 active. There's 3 more functions that I don't have controls for on my throttle. 29 is the load simulation, 30 is the automatic brake, and 31 is the fade out sound. Well, let's go ahead and get this guy moving and take a look at the sounds on the move. Going ahead and relocated here, I'll go ahead and move us in forwards to speed step 1. Just the tiniest bit jittery, nothing to complain about on this model. There isn't a cool brake release like was on the C6Ns recently delivered. I really like that feature. Still a good sound function on this locomotive to start up here. Go ahead and move us up to speed step 5. Still very smooth at this. I'll go ahead and get us up to about 15 here. There's some nice acceleration values already programmed in. And if I coast us back down. And bring us to a stop. Now if I go ahead and toggle function 5 to put us in DPU mode, you'll see that our rear headlights come on. Go ahead and toggle those off and flip us into reverse. Move us to around speed step 10 and then turn on the dynamic brakes so you can get a feel for that as well. So I'll toggle those on now. It does take a little bit to come on. So it cuts the motor out right away. I'll go ahead and bring this down. And even after the locomotive stops, you will still have to turn off the dynamic brakes or else those will stay on. Here's a quick look at the front. If I go ahead and toggle the DPU mode with our front headlight. If I go ahead and just switch us back to forwards. This model also has capacitors in it, so let me give you a quick show of how long those will last. So you get a good few seconds. That'll help you over any uneven or imperfect track. But let's go ahead and give you a quick run by to close out the demo section. And to truly finish off the demo now, here is the shutdown of the locomotive by turning off function 8. You will have to turn off those headlights and ditch lights manually as well. You will hear the air let off going as well while you leave it on the track until the track power is turned off and the capacitor is fully discharged. I do hope you enjoyed that demo. I know we've seen a lot of these ScaleTrains ES44s, but always cool to check out the features. Maybe the speakers sound a little bit different and we have a little bit different variations in some of the sounds, but I hope you like that as well. A couple performance things, coupler heights spot on. I don't have a coupler height gauge, but compared to most of my rolling stock, good news there, no issues. There are ScaleTrains couplers. I'm a pretty decent fan of them. Probably won't convert them to KDs. I know some people do really like KDs as well. All of the wheels were engaged according to my wheel gauge. Good news there once again. But unfortunately, a little bit of bad news. When I was testing the locomotive out, I did pop off the very rear connection to the brake cylinder on this rear axle. I sort of tucked it back in place just to avoid gluing it for now for the review, but that's just a little bit of detail part I will have to fix. Other than that, handrails are just okay. They're a little bit bent. I don't know if I showed this side off on camera. We got a decent bend here on the side, on the long hood side of the locomotive. We'll just have to massage those back into place very carefully. They're thin plastic, but it is just a little bit flexible, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. Other than that, the locomotive runs very well. The only sound issue I really have is that it sounds like there's a little bit of that white noise when I start it up. Can't really tell that it's there when it's moving, so I don't know if that's a speaker issue or just a sound file thing. I am very happy with this locomotive overall. It's my first ever factory patched unit, and I've seen these run the rails fairly recently. I don't know if I've caught this number in particular. There's 3 different ones in this ScaleTrains release. Maybe they'll do more of them in a future release. They just announced another run of ES44s that doesn't have this unit. But in the future, this will probably be their offering. They've done the standard CitiRail units that I was looking at before. Then this one was announced and I knew I had to go with that because I'm moving more towards some modern locomotives. You can see in the background some of those CN heritage units as well. Big fans of those. Those ones do have the red light on the front above the ditch lights. This one, like I said, doesn't because it hasn't been converted over from CN yet. I believe all the CitiRail units were purchased by CN and should now all be patched. Please correct me if I'm wrong or if you do know. So this is probably your most modern look at this locomotive, and it's cool that ScaleTrains is now offering that to modelers. I will go ahead and end off this review here. Do hope you enjoyed. If you did make it this far, do consider subscribing. It is completely free and helps me to make a few dollars, so thank you very much. Like the video if you enjoyed as well, and drop me a comment if you have any questions. I'll do my best to answer them, or if you have any of these of your own in this run or anything else, those CSX heritage units or anything, just like talking with you guys. But thanks again, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.